Step into a world where ancient wisdom meets modern mysticism. Introducing the Gnostic Tarot, a powerful fusion of esoteric art and Gnostic themes designed for those who seek the ultimate gnosis. This mesmerizing deck, rich in symbolism, draws from the profound teachings of Gnosticism, serving as an ideal companion for meditation, reflection, and the exploration of spiritual realms. Whether you are a seasoned tarot enthusiast or new to the practice, the Gnostic Tarot caters to all, offering a portal to ancient wisdom and a tool for uncovering the hidden truths in your mystical journey. Unveil the mysteries, embrace the wisdom. The Gnostic Tarot is a timeless companion for your spiritual odyssey. Take a journey with Gnostic luminaries and learn their stories in a visually stunning manner. From Sophia to the Gnostic Christ, their journey is your self-discovery. Choose from the basic deck or the deluxe version, which includes a beautifully crafted journey book and a magnetic storage box, ensuring that your Gnostic Tarot remains a treasured companion on your spiritual quest. The Gnostic Tarot is an original and collaborative effort between Miguel Conner of Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio and Matthew Schmitz of Altrusian Grace Media. Visit our website to embark on your journey today. Syncrasis Publishing, where ancient wisdom and modern mysticism converge. Get thee thy Gnostic Tarot, and happy heresies, and welcome to the Desert of the Real. My name is Miguel Conner, and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis, your madman across the waters. And it is so good to see everybody who is live on this Sunday, this day, the 13th, and we will find out it is very auspicious because lots of things are going on behind the scenes, up in the stars, within the human soul, and everywhere else. So it is good to see everybody again, and I'm very excited for the show, as today we are joined by Helena B. Scott. Helena, thank you very much for being here. Bienvenido al Desierto del Real.
Thank you for having me. I don't know what's going on, but I see two of me now on screen.
Yeah. I know, that's a twin thing. Okay, now you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Vance, as well. It's nice to be here.
Yes. For the audience, we have been on an adventure where Helena lives. Our country has been without internet, so it's been a big adventure. So she has been an Archon killer by finding new ways to connect herself without the internet so we could do the show. I'm really appreciative of that. Yes, that is not, she can't get her video working today, but believe me, that is Helena. That is not some CIA agent or Archon on Epstein Island or something like that. Helena is with us, but she will be doing audio only, and very excited for the topic today. Her research is mind-blowing and something the world really needs today, whether it's academia or just the lay people out there seeking some real gnosis. And with us too, we got the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. And before the show, I was looking in a little bit into the connection between Mary Magdalene and the Templars, and I was amazed to see how many connections there really were. So looking forward to hearing about that and other things.
There are indeed much going on. Yes, and for the audience, we will look at some visuals from her presentation. Helena will guide us into this journey. If you have any questions for her as we go through or towards the end of the interview, please super chat them. Helena, would you like me to pull up the slides now, or is there any intro you want to tell?
I can do it with the first slide already, so we can put the first slide on. That would be awesome. Thank you.
You got it. All right, here we go. Slide number 1.
Great. So this slide for me is quite special, and it is my Facebook cover photo. I took this photo, and it's a Cistercian Abbey in County Tipperary in Ireland. Okay, I will be showing you photos of Ireland today. And I have some videos, but I think they're not going to work today. This is the Cistercian Abbey of Kilcooley. Okay. And it's interesting because there is a Knights Templar tomb there. I discovered a lot of medieval graffiti that nobody had discovered connected to the Templars. There's even a soul tire, so hidden inside a medieval sedilia, which is really cool. Yeah, you'll get to see a few things in a moment. But that statement there, which comes from the Upanishads, I have studied all world faiths, and this is obviously a Hindu text, okay? And this is really my mission in my work in history and everything I do. So from falsehood, lead me to truth. From darkness, lead me to the light. From death, lead me to immortality. I am a truth seeker, but I'm also somebody, regardless of the hats that I wear and the areas that I work in, which there are many and varied, and not just history. I try to do, I think, possibly Miguel might agree with me, what the Gnostics try to do, which is bring back ancient wisdom that has been forgotten or omitted on purpose, okay?
Exactly.
And that can make our lives better, which for me is what the Templars were trying to do. That was one of their biggest goals or points in their mission, aims, okay? So if we go to the next slide, please, the next one.
Got it.
That's just a little mock-up that I have just to show some of the areas and things that I do. For people that don't know my work, I do have a website in www.helenabscott.com. And I'm on other places, which I'll mention in a moment. I do workshops, I do talks, I do consultations. I do work with ancient energies, which the Templars also did, and I'll get into that in a moment. I do ocean therapy, I do mediumship, I do soul archaeology. So I am a Jungian. I do work with archetypes and depth psychology, but also the chakras and energy healing at the same time. And that's what I call soul archaeology, spiritual coaching, wellness, historical research, of course, the occult and the paranormal. So that's just a glimpse, a very quick glimpse of what I do. Symbolism pretty much being at the core of everything I do. We're going to look at a lot of symbols today, Masonic and Templar as well. And they are from my research, so nobody will have seen those outside of my work because they're not known. What else was I going to say? All of these areas, really, like I mentioned, for me, the Gnostics preserved wisdom. And in many ways, I feel that they've passed the torch to me under the label of cultural heritage, which is what I have been studying in the past year in my postgraduate master's in public history and cultural heritage with the University of Limerick in Ireland, and in my internship with Waterford Medieval Museum, which I just finished. So I've actually passed semester 1 and semester 2 of my master's degree. So I'm actually doing my dissertation now, and you guys are going to get to see exclusives of my dissertation research today. Nobody's seen that either. So slide 3, please.
You got it. And congratulations.
Thank you. I thought it was going to actually kill me, but
these things do. The Elvis book almost killed me.
Yes, I've been sleeping an average of 3 to 4 hours a day for the last year and a half. But anyway, so as I mentioned, that slide there, which was taken a photo in Loftus Hall in Ireland's most haunted house in the background, so that's why it looks a bit spooky, in 2018. I do speak quite a few languages, so I work with these in history. And I wanted to point this out because for me, it's very unusual to find a historian, and particularly in the Templar world, that has no language barriers. And this is important because it was an international order. We often hear historians complain that there isn't documentation available, but actually there is, and quite a lot. It's just not all in English or in French, which are the dominant narratives. But I work with Latin, I work with Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Catalan. I don't speak Portuguese, but Miguel knows I can understand it perfectly. So, so these are the core languages of the order. So if you can understand those and the medieval variants of them, which they're not the same as the modern, then you've got quite a lot of access that other historians don't have to documentation.
Mm.
And that's, I think, what makes my work different, which is what I wanted to highlight. And then I have a little bit on that slide there about cultural heritage. I was published by the UNESCO in 2009 in cultural heritage. So even though I'm doing this master's right now, you know, more than 15 years later, you know, I have been working in cultural heritage and history for a very, very long time. You know, 2009 is well, a year after my son was born. So he's almost going to be 18.
Wow.
You know? So long time. So if we go to the next slide, please.
There you go.
So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about something quite controversial, which the last few days it got me into a little bit of hot water. Maybe I'll share the story if I may.
Sure.
So this is just the background. I am a member of the College of Psychic Studies. I trained there for 10 years and I lecture there. I've been lecturing there for almost 2 years now. And I lecture on the Knights Templar, on the occult. I have actually this Tuesday an online talk coming up on the Knights Templar, women and sacred sexuality. So, and it's, again, nothing that is out there, nothing that has been mentioned. So if you're interested, come along and give my work a try. I think you won't be disappointed, and you'll even go home with homework because I give people a lot of handouts. So,
great.
Yes. So just to share a little story, the past few days for me were quite, well, unexpected. But in many ways, it was the same old tune that we've heard for the last 800 years. Witch, you're a witch. Okay.
Oh my God. Jesus.
So, but connected to my dissertation. And I won't name names, but in one of the projects I was working in, one of the people on the chair and the board decided that they were not going to convene the group for interviews that I needed to show public engagement and to share my research with the group and to hear their ideas. Because I'm turning these places, I'm trying to get visitors to engage in the local communities. And they decided that they didn't want anything to do with me because I am a psychic and I therefore do the work of the devil. And that was basically what I said. And I was told to call this person the chair of the group by a local government official, counselor, because she was the person to organize this. And then she even told me that she had met with the entire group and the general consensus was they wanted nothing to do with me because of my background in mediumship, which is contrary to the church, but also later I heard because they believe, or she believed rather, that I am not a proper historian because my history isn't what you learned in school.
No.
So
same old.
That's what I had. So do you know, Miguel knows what happened. In the end, I was able to contact some of the volunteers and we met like the Templars would have met in secret in a graveyard in the early hours in the morning to do these interviews. But, you know, you would have thought that after 800 years, they would have changed that tune. But no. So when I say the word psychic, it sort of brings up, even in Ireland, where people are very open to talk about death and mediumship, and where even in the Celtic world, we speak of the veil between the world of the living and the dead being not blurred, but non-existing, really, you know. But somehow I make them nervous. I make the locals very nervous. So anyway, I thought I'd share that as a little anecdote. Because it's just, you know, for me, I'm foremost an academic. I was quite shocked at that, you know, but anyway, so we can go to the next slide, which is also the College of Psychic Studies. It's just some of the courses that I'm teaching now. So although I do hate that word psychic or medium, I am what some people would call a natural medium or a ghost whisperer. I don't have ghosts, so I don't do lockdowns or you know, paranormal investigations, chasing ghosts in places, but I am guided by my intuition and by those who are no longer here. So yes, dead people. This is how often I find many clues and evidence in my research. Sometimes I go to these places that you've seen the photos, and I get pulled to a certain place of the building, or I get something in my head that tells me that I have to look at file 256 or whatever, or page whatever. And I find a clue that I wouldn't have looked at if that information had not been given to me. So therefore, haunted history, mediumship, and psychical research are a very big part of my life. I trained in magic, witchcraft, and the occult at Imperial College London, and I've trained in mediumship at both Arthur Findlay and the London College of Psychic Studies, where I trained for over a decade, actually. And I have been teaching just under 2 years, like I mentioned before. Arthur Findlay and London College of Psychic Studies are, for me and most people, the leading authorities in spiritual and esoteric training in the world. So for me, it's a very big honor to be teaching at the college, because it embodies a lot of my values. But also I have to mention, since we're going to talk about Freemasonry today, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of Sherlock Holmes, who was a Freemason, was once the chairman of my college as well. So yes. And W.B. Yeats, I did a presentation of him, also a Freemason, which people did not know, but I found the evidence he was not just a member of the Golden Dawn, he was also a member of the college. So it's nice to be a part of history, I think, and not just teach it. Indeed. So if you go to slide 6, please. I think we'd be looking at some wine. A background with the next one, just the next one.
Slide 7?
Yeah, that one. Is it 7? Is it? Well,
no,
that's the next
6.
one. Sorry.
It's got the elixir of life, wine, and the Knights Templar.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So that's just a little slide showing you a bottle of wine there with St. Helena, who was very important for the Knights Templar because they revered the feminine, and I'll discuss that in a minute. And some lectures I did on wine, because I know I did say that I bring back ancient wisdom that has been forgotten or omitted, but I also recreate history. And what I did was recreate a historic medicinal wine that would have been made by Templars and would have been drunk by Templars, Pimmin medieval St. Helena wine, which is what you see in the bottle there. It has spikenard, so and it is an aphrodisiac, I will say. The guinea pigs were a Belgian order that helped me make it, OTAC from Belgium. They were the guinea pigs, and they all tried it in a big dinner, which is the photo you see there. Nobody was poisoned. Nobody did anything crazy. And it was liked. So I hope to continue making that for next year. But that was a nice way of bringing back a little piece of the past into the present. And it is a wine that can help us, because wine back in those times wasn't like the wine of today. It was used as a base, and you would do complex or simple remedies using wine or vinegar as a base in medicine, in medieval medicine. So that's just what I wanted to share with that. If we can go to the next slide, please.
Before we do, just so the audience knows, it's not like it was channeled. You looked at the documents and found the recipes.
Yes,
This is, I mean, this is what they drank.
So no, I looked for a recipe, and I found a recipe from the 1300s. If anybody's interested, I can share. I actually have my lectures on YouTube, actually, and I do have a Patreon channel, and I have over 60 recorded lectures, like 60 recorded lectures in the last year, because I do 4 or 5 live events a month. And I have themed live groups there. So people who really want to learn about what is not out there in any book can do that with me. And I always provide the sources where it comes from, so you can see I'm not making it up, So this did come from a medieval book. I will say also, I forgot to say that it was made together with the Belgian Civilian Templar Order, OTAC, but the wine that we used to make it with the ingredients actually came from vineyards of Tomar, Portugal, that belonged to the Knights Templar.
I've been in the ruins. Yes,
you've been there. Yeah. Okay. So you're actually drinking from the vines that would have been on that earth planted by Templars. So that's quite a nice thing, I think, But anyway, so yes, we will have to share some of that next time, with the video. Next time we can do another podcast. Next slide, please, Miguel.
Yeah, this is the video slide, so we should skip it again for the audience. We'll have our next show. We will
For the audience, so that they know, it was just a video that they can see on my website in the multimedia section of my website. It's on Loftus Hall. So I did a series of trailers with my colleague. Actually, he filmed it, Steve Meyler, who was the head of forensic photography of Scotland Yard. And he was my colleague in the book. So all the photography you're going to see of Loftus Hall is his. And that video was filmed by him. And there were trailers of the book that we did. So I did mention finding graffiti in Mason marks, and I'm going to be creating a database for Ireland. That's one of the things that I want to do. It hasn't been done. This is from that place with the window that we began to talk today, Kilcooley Abbey, Cistercian Abbey. And that's not me holding the phone there. That's a tutor from the College of Psychic Studies who wanted to come out. And after training me, we became friends, and she flew over from the UK, and she wanted to see how I worked in real life and spend a day being Indiana Jones. So she did. And it was a lot of fun, and we have videos of that. So Anne Theato, a psychic and medium who works with the UK's leading psychic detective, Tony Stockwell. So that's who I did that with. And I want to mention there on that slide that my passion really, although I work in history, is symbolism within history, which is key for understanding the Templars and is essentially Gnostic, the symbolism that we're going to be looking at with the Templars. If you understand Gnosticism and Gnostic symbolism, you're going to understand the Templars and their symbolism, but also all brotherhoods of light and even the Freemasons, whose symbolism for me and inheritance, even if we can say they might come from the Templars, they actually come from the same source. Okay, so both Templars and Freemasons, whether we say that the Freemasons come from the Templars or not, it doesn't matter. But if we go back in time, both of them have a common source, which is Gnosticism for me. So, and if I can define what Gnosticism is, which is very difficult to define, but just for those viewers who are watching and might not be sure, I mean, I know that most will be Gnostic perhaps, but just to give a little quick definition, for me, Gnosticism isn't a religion, it's a philosophy which draws from various truths from other religions, including Christianity, Egypt, Mesopotamia, paganism, Judaism, Kabbalah, and Merkava mysticism, and many more. I will be talking about that later on. The symbol you have there is a medieval mason's mark of a knotted rope or knotwork. Possibly some would say a figure 8 Carrick bend style, okay, from one of my favorite Cistercian abbeys, Kilcooley, which has that Templar gracelat. It's also where they filmed Excalibur, the movie, and there's some scenes, some slides at the end, so I'll show you.
Wow,
So if you go
John
to the next,
Borman's Excalibur?
yeah, you're gonna like that.
Love it
Excalibur,
already.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's closed to the public usually, but I have been doing research, so I can go in there, and it's nice that I go there and I get the place to myself as well. So the photos, I have footage as well filmed that's been done just with me there on my own, which is really nice. So on the next slide, maybe I should quiz Miguel on this one, or Vance. We're in class.
We're in class. Oh,
So we
no.
I see some fish there.
Yes. What else do you see on the left?
Let's see. That looks like, wow, it looks like a mermaid almost.
Yes,
Maybe,
there's a tail of a mermaid at the bottom. Okay,
yeah,
and she's lost her comb, but she's holding something. She's holding like a mirror.
like a
Can you see
mirror.
like a
Yeah.
little round? Yeah. Okay, so this is in the same Cistercian abbey. For me, it's like a treasure trove, that one. It's like, the little mermaid Ariel when she goes into her cave of trinkets and things. Well, that's what Kilcooley Abbey is to me. It's just amazing. You can find there. And nobody's ever really written about this place, but it's just fabulous. So when I came there, my historian friend said, yes, that's a mermaid, but she represents vanity and lust. And I said, yeah, no. For me, that's the esoteric interpretation, or the interpretation for the universal public who is not initiated, okay? But there is another interpretation. Miguel knows, he's nodding already. So, in fact, we can have, Rudolf Steiner talked about this, we can have multiple layers or levels of interpretation in both the exoteric interpretation, the universal interpretation for those who are not initiated, and the esoteric, which is connected to Gnosticism, the inner interpretation. So I'm going to ask you, Miguel, I'm going to put you in a hot spot. Give me your esoteric interpretation, one of them of this mermaid.
Well, whenever because when you have a mermaid, I always think of the ancient goddesses from the Persian times, Satana, Artemis, all those. And of course,
yes,
when I think of waters, I think of the unconscious and the great mother and creation. So
yes,
that's what speaks.
yes.
And of course, you and I have talked. Sophia is simply another iteration of these great feminine forces.
Definitely. Vance, do you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I don't know. I think this is my brain cheating, but I'm thinking of Mary Magdalene somehow, you know, the fish being symbolic of Jesus, and, you know, the union between Jesus and Mary.
There's many layers. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the symbolism. So the mermaid, we can see her, and I'm going to talk about her on Tuesday. I did a talk just on mermaids last year, and I have one coming up also next month at the college on the Melusine of the House of Lusignan. Okay, so we see her associated with Templars, like I said, in the House of Lusignan, or even in the Sinclair family of Rosslyn chapels in the coat of arms. Now, she can be seen as Lady Alchemy, okay? So we go to alchemy and we go to the marriage of the sun and moon, okay? She is in the middle between the sun and the moon, the king. This is sovereignty ritual of the ancient goddesses, ancient times. The king represents the sun. The priestess represents the goddess or the moon, and who is marrying them in between? The Lady Alchemy, okay? With we often see Mercury pouring in copper, and we see Lady Alchemy as a mermaid swimming in these waters, which is the Kundalini energy as well. So it can get very complicated. That's one explanation, but I'm going to make it easier for the public who is watching. So the mermaid is feminine. Yes, we can see her, you know, as connected to the feminine. We can also see her as a bridge between two worlds, the conscious and the unconscious. This is already Jungian psychology, the union of opposites. And we can see her as a guide and as an initiator, like Mary Magdalene. So yes, that's very correct as well. Okay, so that mirror that she's holding for me is the mirror of awareness. Okay. Now, this is the interpretation I'm going to read to you guys. This is from my work. Okay, this is what I gave the historian. That's what I interpreted that mermaid slapped on that wall. She is the feminine energy of the land there. Okay, the feminine energy of the land, holding the mirror of awareness, because the energy of the land, when we tune into it, makes us aware. Attracting the knowledge, the salmon of knowledge of Finn McCool. You have to know the Irish mythology here to understand this. And attracting the carp. But what are carps? Because the Cistercians kept carps. So carps, in esoteric terms, they have many associations, but the one that is relevant here with a Cistercian group would be the followers of a religion that is outside of the Catholic Church, but connected to the goddess tradition. Okay, so think about that, because the Cistercians were devout Marianists, and so were the Templars. It's all about the feminine. So they are indeed, and as I will show today, they are not Catholics. That's one of the things I'm going to be saying in my dissertation. They had Catholics in the order, yes, but the Templars were an interfaith order, and the upper circles were Gnostic. So that's my interpretation of this, because ancient sites, when we go to them and when we tune into the energy, and a lot of them are thin places, we do indeed become aware of things we are not aware before. We do indeed perceive the knowledge that is attracted to that site, you know, and we do go to those sites like the carps. We look for those sites, you know. So that's my interpretation anyway. That's in Kilcooley as well. So that's part of my research. So if we go to the next slide, please.
Sure. I was thinking another interpretation from what Vance said. There's Mary. She's cooking dinner. Jesus is in the other room. Go, Mary, fish sticks again. Come on, Mary. I don't know. That could be one. Anyway, let's go to the next slide.
So again, with symbolism, I am very grateful, and that's one of the things that I like to do, gratitude, which is connected to the goddesses. I teach that, and I teach something called the 5 rights of Goddess Hathor, which I want you guys to do right now. Let's go to Egypt, because I'm a member of the Egyptian Exploration Society as well, established in 1882. So stick out your left hand, both of you, in front of you. You can do it because I don't have a camera, but your left hands. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Stretch out your arms. Okay. And looking at your left hand. Okay. I want you to, in your head, without saying out loud. Okay. Name the 5 things that you are grateful for off the top of your head without thinking about them. Because if you think about them, you're engaging your human brain. I want you to engage your soul. Okay. So don't think about them. All right. And then when you're done, tell me you're done.
Done.
Okay. Yeah. Dance. Yeah. So now looking at your left hand, this is an Egyptian ritual, okay? Looking at your left hand, the priest would say to the person who was doing this with him, these are the 5 gifts of Goddess Hathor. If one is ever taken away, it will be replaced by another. And this was done because normally, okay, in the fields, when they were cutting the grain, you know, they would have this hand in front of them, okay? And they would cut, you know, with their right hand. Okay, so they would see their 5 fingers in front of them, and they would be reminded constantly of 5 things to be grateful for during the day. And gratitude was what made your heart lighter in the weighing of the heart ceremony.
Fascinating.
So that's how you could go to the
Beautiful.
field of reeds in heaven. So yeah, so Egypt is important with the Templars. So if we look at this floor now.
Yeah, certainly.
This
yeah,
is the
Egypt,
floor.
Gnosticism is an Egyptian religion. It's so.
Yes.
So back.
Well, I will get on to Egypt afterwards when I talk about the Temple of Solomon and the actual name of the Templars, because it's very relevant. So this is the floor of Ireland's most haunted house, okay, Loftus Hall in County Wexford. It was redone in the 1870s, and basically it was a house, it was medieval, built in 1350. Yeah, okay, that's great. If we can leave it there for a moment. Built in 1350 by descendants of Raymond le Gros, the first of the Redmonds that came in with the Anglo-Norman invasion, okay? And it was called Redmond Hall then, and then later on in 1666, with the Cromwellian confiscations and Henry Loftus, when he took over the house, he renamed it Loftus Hall, okay? We'll come back to Henry Loftus in a minute. So if you look at that floor, can anybody tell me, either of you, what you see? Because there are some Masonic symbols there, everywhere. And this was missed during centuries. Nobody's ever commented on this until I came there. I was actually living opposite the hall. And there's an interesting story as to how I got to the hall. I received an email after avoiding it for a whole year that I had won a competition to stay overnight. Except I had just moved over from Spain. I think I shared it with you, Miguel, when you asked me how did I move there. I said, well, I closed my eyes and I put my finger on a map, and I did. And that's
yes,
the area.
I remember.
Yeah, that's the area. I never knew about it, but you know, I go with my heart always. And actually, I put my finger very next to that house, also on Templar lands. This house is on Templar lands, on the world's oldest operating lighthouse, built by the greatest knight that ever lived, Templar William Marshall. This whole area, okay, it's Hook Peninsula in County Wexford, was given to the Knights Templar by Henry II, the husband of Eleanor of Aquitaine, in 1172. In this house, nearby was the older residence built by the first Redmond in 1180. But this house, when it was redone, this is the floor that they put in. You can see a square and compass on the bottom, and then you can see an 8-pointed star in the kind of
that's
threshold.
what I was saying. Yeah, the Ogdod, Ishtar, 8-pointed star. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Very good, very good. And then we'll look at the floor closer, because I have a bigger photo for the floor. But those little clusters that you can see, that you can kind of make out that there is a Templar cross in them, and they have some sort of the clusters of pointed stars with a Templar cross in them. Okay. And then on the borders, we have fig leaves, which are very important in Masonry. And we also have the cross of St. John going around there. So, of course, I look at this floor and I think, this is Masonic. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And the whole house, you know, the number of the house is 8. which for me is definitely feminine, but it's also resurrection. So if we go to the next slide.
All right.
If I had never known symbolism, I would never have discovered anything about that house. So the next slide, okay, is interesting because that is the Star of St. Patrick. That's actually the little clusters that you can see far away with the Templar cross. So this is the actual breast medal of St. Patrick, which is among the top 3 oldest Masonic orders in the world. First, we have the Order of the Garter for England. Then we have the Order of the Thistle for Scotland. And then we have the Order of the Garter of St. Patrick for Ireland. Okay. So that was on the floor. We'll see it again later on. If we go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
This is in St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is the HQ of the Order of St. Patrick in Ireland. Okay. And I actually had the pleasure of proving my dad's a historian as well, military historian, but he's not into the Templars, unfortunately, proving my theory that I was correct when I said, look, this is the panel of the founding knights of the Order of St. Patrick. And of course, Henry Loftus, which we see in the next slide. If we go to the next slide, please.
Got it.
Yeah, you can see it there. I pointed it with a little arrow. So we have the name of Henry I, Earl of Ely. Okay, that's Loftus family. Okay, one of the founding members of the order. So with that, I realized that we were looking at Masonic architecture in Loftus Hall and that it was a Masonic meeting venue for the area. Okay, nobody had ever said this in, well, 300 years. So or more. So symbolism is really, really important to know. Really, really important. And if we go to the next slide, I'm going to connect Freemasons and Templars for you now. This is the ceremony of installation of the illustrious Knights of the Order of St. Patrick, painted much later, obviously, by Joseph Peacock in 1821. And it's obviously inside St. Patrick's Cathedral. But you know what happened in St. Patrick's Cathedral in 1310? The trial, the proceedings of the Knights Templar in Ireland.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
In the same place where the order decides to make its HQ. So there are ties if you look for them. We just have to keep our eyes open, I think. I want to mention another person relevant to my book on Loftus Hall, and I'm going to show a little bit of the book and the connection with the Templars, how they arrived in Ireland. Okay, so there is another member relevant to the family of the Dublin branch of the family, Duke Philip Wharton. He was a son of Lucy Loftus of the Dublin Loftus branch of the family. And he was quite a notable Freemason, founder of the Lodge of Madrid in Spain, my hometown where I was born, but also the Paris Lodge and the Hellfire Club in London. And while he was not the founder of the Hellfire Club in Dublin, he did own it. And it shares a similar devil in the cards ghost story as Loftus Hall, which is known as Ireland's most haunted house. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, please. These are some from Loftus Hall now we're going to see. So that's just my book that you see there with the cover and that photo that we saw before, which for me represents the main protagonist of the story. So the story very quickly is about a stranger that arrives to the Hook Peninsula in the middle of a storm. Some say from Spain. I think they like to always add the Spain thing in there. But anyway, he arrives, a dark, handsome stranger arrives to the peninsula and sees from a distance in the storm a place where he can take shelter in the middle of the night, this house that you're going to see in the next photo. And he knocks on the door, and because his manners are impeccable, they allow him to stay. And he actually enjoys a very long extended stay with the family there and their daughter, Anne Tottenham. He begins to get very friendly with her, and she falls in love with him. And one night they're playing a game of cards. She was very bad at cards, this is what we're told. And she drops a card or a ring under the table, and she bends down to pick it up. And when she does, she notices that he has cloven hoofs instead of feet. So she screams in terror. And of course, he shoots through the roof, leaving a hole in the roof and the smell of brimstone. And then she goes insane. Depending on the stories, we're told that she was pregnant with him. And she locks herself up in the tapestry room, and she never hears from him again. And then she dies. But the body of her baby was found buried in the wall when they did the renovations in the 1870s of an infant that is believed to be her baby. That's recorded in the family logs. And then we were told that she was so distraught that she haunted the hall, and they had to get a priest in and do an exorcism and all sorts of things, which I discovered with my book that, well, you know, truth is stranger than fiction. There's a darker story to the hall than that, you know. So we go to the next slide, please. This is just from my book. It's a little excerpt. So our ending was premature, our stories unfinished, in the dark, alone and frightened. We were forced to search for the explanations we never received, and thus we haunted. This for me, thank you. This for me reflects what I feel about the other world. These people were alive once, and they deserve to be treated with respect. And often they stay behind not because they want to, but because of the way they die, or soul contracts that we make, or other circumstances. But most of the time, they are held back, not by their own will, and they're confused, and they don't know why they're there. So, you know, one thing that I would like to say to all of those who are listening tonight and who have come across paranormal situations, to be kind, to be mindful.
Well said.
Thank you.
The dead are not dead.
No, and I think they watch over us and they guide us.
Indeed.
You know. And I mean, that is part of my work, you know. Some people might think I'm a bit strange because I'm a psychic, or, you know, I lecture at the college, but I believe in the survival of the soul. I believe that there is life after death. I believe in incarnations. I have memories that I cannot understand, you know, from other lifetimes, other places, you know, other people too, because transmediumship is a thing that came to me as a gift a few years ago. So, you know, that's, I don't chase ghosts. I don't do lockdowns. They come to me. And there's a saying in the spirit world that the spirit world chooses who they show things to and chooses its messengers. And I do believe in that. So, but I am very grateful to them, even though it has greatly complicated my life. But, you know, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for them. So I have to give them a shout out. And I always say that I didn't write the book on my own. They wrote it with me. They did, because they showed me a lot of things that I wouldn't have found without them. And some parts of the book were written in the night through automatic writing as well. So I have to say that. Yes. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to show you something more interesting. So this is the card game that I mentioned before. It's an image just to set the scene of the card game that was played in Redmond Hall, you know, when that card is dropped and then he shot through the roof. In that video we couldn't watch today, which I'll send you for next time, you can see the actual, you know, staircase where Anne is supposed to be coming down, and you see the hole in the roof and all of these things. Now, Loftus Hall was once open for tours. It's no longer open. We don't really know what's happening. I always say that it refuses to be owned because it's never lasted very long in the hands of anybody. And it's again vacant and up for sale. I would love to have the money. If anybody's listening, any investors, I would love to have the money to invest in that and make it into a proper school of the mysteries there. That's what I would like. That's what I would like. So if anybody is an investor and is hearing this, please reach out to me. So next slide. It would be lovely because the energies in the hook are amazing. That is the hole. It's gorgeous.
Wow, gorgeous.
It's really, really gorgeous. And that's what it looked like after the renovations in the 1800s. So if we go to the next slide, please. This was the video that we didn't get to see, but we'll see the floor properly. Now you can see there in the middle of that big cluster, there is an 8-pointed star. Okay. and then there's another cluster in there with lots of different pointed stars, and then the very inner one is an 8-pointed star with the Templar cross. Okay, so the emblem of the Order St. Patrick that I showed you before. That's why I showed you that medal. So we can go to the next slide whenever you're ready. Yeah, that's the inside. That's the long walk, okay, the hallway downstairs. And all these photos are by my colleague, Steve Meyler, former head of forensic photography at Scotland Yard, who did the book with me. It's interesting how we met, if I can share the story just very quickly. Just because it shows how things happen in my life and why I say I believe in the other world. I have a son, he's now 18. I was taking him to a camp here and I was doing time and I had like half an hour. So I went into a graveyard next door, which looked kind of historic, kind of nice. I like the architecture, so I wanted to go see it. And I noticed a grave that was not very old, but it just drew my attention. And I've learned in my life that these things happen for a reason. So I have to take a picture when I feel like something is going to be meaningful later on down the road. So I did. And the name on the grave was Meyler, Meyler. I didn't know anybody by a Meyler then, but I thought, well, maybe I will meet somebody. Maybe I will get a message from him. You know, I will take the photograph. And 4 days later, more or less, I got a message on Facebook from a Steve Meyler.
Oh, wow.
The message was, "Hi, Helena. My name is Steve Meyler. I've just moved here to the Hook from England. I worked with Scotland Yard in forensic photography. I read your blog on your experience last weekend on Loftus Hall, because I spent, after I had won that competition to stay overnight, I did go. I spent a weekend, a night, and I wrote about it. And they really liked it, so they shared it on their blog. And Steve, who would become my colleague from the police. I worked with the police in historic murder and investigation cases for 30 years. So when I moved to Ireland, I was hoping I was done with that, but no. They always come looking for you, you know. Yeah. He liked it and he wanted to meet with me to see if we could work together. So that's how it happened, you know. And he took this picture. And they call this a long walk because it feels like it's a very, very long corridor, but it feels like you're kind of walking to the other end of life, you know, when you get to it. It's very, very eerie, you know, but I did like the hall. It changed my life, changed the life of all of us. So if you could go to the next slide, please, when you can. Yeah, these are from my book, so I'll just read out the little quotes. Following our deaths, the tragic events of our love were to become a vulgar ghost story as history, a collection of mortal lies agreed upon. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's what history becomes. Lies that we agree upon, that the victors agree on. And my job is in not just history, but secret history, which is historical revisionism. I go and dig up what everybody wants to bury, and I bring out as much of the truth as I can. So that's my particular area of work, historical revisionism or secret history. And then the other one is on a staircase, which the crucifix there in the middle tends to move on its own and go upside down, which is quite eerie. It has been caught on camera doing that. So Loftus Hall essentially is a love story, okay, of two people from different faiths who are not allowed to be in life and in death because they died different ways. And one of them did not know that they were dead. They also couldn't be together in death. So it's quite tragic. So our story so far had been one of love, betrayal, and sins other than our own. The truth and memories of our perpetrators had done would forever haunt them as ghosts of their wrongdoings. Couldn't read it. It was so little. So it really touched me. And if you can see the image on the left, there's an 8-pointed star there too, on the ceiling. And the staircase has lights on the banister. There's 8 lights. It's all about 8-pointed stars and 8s repeating the whole time. So Masonic architecture throughout. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Sure. Here you go.
Yeah, this was really a good find. So this was in my research, and I was with Steve in the National Library of Ireland in the archive vault, and we were going through the family's papers. Some of them were like 300 and something years old and massive. We had to use paperweights. And this was a note that had been left. You can see there 1900 on the 13th. Day of today. I picked today,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, had to
Yeah.
be today.
Uh-huh. So let's read it together, guys. Okay, this was on a map of 1771. A note is left, 200 years later by a descendant of the Redmonds. Okay, Redmond Hall it was, and Redmond Hall it is. The Loftus family obtained it by plunder and disloyalty. They never forgave them. The Redmonds are Templars, okay? They're descendants of that first Redmond, they're Templars. But as I said, I was going to share ties. The person who signed this, which I think possibly could have been John or his brother, Redmond, they were politicians in Ireland at the time, and they were Freemasons. And the Redmond family vault is actually in Templar lands, in the ancient Templar cemetery, St. John's in Wexford. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So we have ties again with the Masons and the Templars coming up again. And the house, by the way, is on Templar lands, as I mentioned before. So if we can go to the next slide when you're ready, please.
All right.
1 second.
The ghost story.
That's just to show you a little bit of my book. So there are tarot cards, okay? And there's a way to read the book. The Irish Writers Union kind of asked me how on earth I came up with this, because they said, you've created a new genre. It's not just a book, because it is an interactive, occult little gadget. Depending on when your eyes land on the page and the image you read, you will start to put information together within you that's not on a page. And for example, there's numerology going on in the whole book. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, would you see some tarot cards? I think.
Yep.
Okay, so that was given to me one morning. I woke up. My colleague said, "Well, how are we going to have the book? How many chapters?" I've been working on the text already for a while, and I said, "I don't know. It'll come to me." And I woke up one morning, and he thought I was possessed, and I said, "Steve, we're going to have chapters 1 to 15, and they are the 15 cards of the major arcana in order, which actually tell our story of researching the story of Loftus Hall in the meanings of the cards." So he thought I was nuts. Okay, each character in the story. So I mentioned Lady Anne Tottenham, who's the wonderful lady who falls in love with the devil, the dark stranger. Okay, her card is number 6. Okay. So this, for me, was given to me by her, because 15 adds to 6. 1 plus 5 is 6. Okay. So, but also, you will see that certain times when her image comes up, or she's mentioned, the page numbers tend to add up to 6 when she appears. It's really eerie, and I didn't do this on purpose. So I gave the cards to my colleague here, who doesn't know anything about tarot cards at all. And he was going to photograph them for the book. And he decided that he kind of liked that little spread that he did, not knowing we're seeing an X there, okay, which is kind of very relevant to Freemasonry and the Templars and the symbolism of the house as well. But not knowing that this is called, what he actually did, the Golden Dawn spread. And this deck that we see here is the Rider-Waite or Waite-Smith deck that was created by the Golden Dawn. So A. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. So it gets eerier and eerier. When I finished the text in Word, I had 66,666 words.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't have done it. And we wrote the book. We began to research the book in the 666th year of its anniversary of the house.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really interesting. Yeah. So we go to the next slide, please. It's going to get eerie. I'm going to talk about ley lines now. All right. So I mapped and discovered 3 ley lines in the area. I'm the only person in recent times that has mapped any ley lines in Ireland. And I lived in this peninsula. I moved there from Spain. That's where I put my finger on a map. And I gave Steve my coordinates. I basically had between 9 and 12 points on each line, and I followed the classical markers of Alfred Watkins, the British archaeologist who coined the term ley line. And for those of you who might not know what a ley line is, it's an invisible energy line running through sacred sites. Not quite straight, but more or less straight, okay? And in ancient times, they believed that spirits could only travel in straight lines, so they would build things along them also to block the passage of spirits, okay? But this energy could be manipulated. So bearing that in mind, I said to Steve, okay, I've got my ley lines now, and to get them basically, when I arrived in the area, I noticed that for such a small peninsula, it was filled with archaeology. I've also studied archaeology, so I'm not just a historian. I work with archaeology, and you're going to see some of the archaeological findings that I identified for my dissertation in the Templar cemetery. So for me, it was really weird that in such a small place there would be so much stuff, you know, not just Templars, but we're talking about Bronze Age burial mounds and things that were very old, churches from the 5th century, you know, all of this stuff, which were classical ley markers. So I kept thinking ley. I've been a pilot. I was flying until 2019 as well. So I flew over the area. My colleague walked over with dowsing rods.
Do we lose her?
Billy Colfer, who wrote a book on the area, and he had gone through the trouble of looking at what had been removed in previous centuries when people were building there or plowing the fields. And, you know, there was a lot of early Bronze Age stuff and Ogham stones, or Oghams, as they call them in Ireland, which is a native way of saying them. They look like little sticks. It's the early Celtic writing alphabet, because it is an alphabet. And sometimes we find stones with runes, Norse runes, because the Vikings were here. I also specialize in the Vikings, and with Oghams on them, which is really interesting. And of course, there were Oghams in a church very nearby Loftus Hall. So I told my colleague, I said, okay, ley lines tend to be aligned to an astronomical object, and they usually could be the sun, like Newgrange, or it could be a star. I said, please plot them on your software, because I don't understand that. I'm a techno peasant, you know, and give me a date. Give me a date. You know, well, you know now, you guys, techno peasant, you've experienced, you know, although somehow I made today work, you know.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, I am plugged into my phone, to my laptop, to be able to do this today without Wi-Fi. So anyway, so we were in his kitchen, and he said the first swear word I'd ever heard of my colleague. And I sort of turned around and like, what, why, what, give me the date. And he said, you're not going to believe this. 31st of October, Halloween, which is a portal, obviously, but they align to the Milky Way, which is a portal in itself. Which is interesting, because if we go to the next slide, please. Okay, that star in the middle represents the Milky Way, Jacob's Ladder. Okay. And that's in the Loftus Hall. And actually in the corners, you actually have the north, south, you know, the coordinates, you know, you have that on there. So that for me was used as a Masonic meeting room. And I don't know what they would have done there, but you can see it's highly esoteric, the floor. There's square and compasses above the windows, and the door frames there as well. Okay. And then there's a Virginia star as well in the middle. And of course, the cross of the Templars, and there's a lot going on there. I teach my students how to decode those floors. So that's one of the things I do at the college. If anybody's interested, you can learn to do what I do and go around countries freaking out people and telling them what the floors mean. So for me, now we're going to go into something really interesting, the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. We have a Milky Way mapped on the floor. So if I was right and I wasn't loopy with all of this, I said to my colleague, this was in April, I said, we're going to have to wait until the 31st of October and pray that it doesn't rain. But if it doesn't rain, we should be seeing the Milky Way standing on the ley lines on the 31st of October. So next photo, please. Yeah, oops. One back.
One back, there you
go. The Milky Way. There you go.
Wow.
So that's what we saw. So then I was really happy, and I was there with my son and Steve from the the Scotland Yard, and I was like, I'm not crazy, see, I'm not crazy. Because I did that without any instruments. People call it geopathic stress nowadays, a lot of names, but I did that first of all because I feel ley lines the same way I feel things when I go to these sites. So energy is real. We can feel it. And it speaks to us in stones, in wood, in nature. We can definitely feel it. So now if you go to the next one, you can see the ley lines I mapped. So there's 3 actually, not just 2. The lighthouse, which you'll see in the next photo in a moment, is right at the very tip of that mass of land. And Loftus Hall is, it's on the ley line on the left where the sea crosses. So there's a third ley line that crosses both of them. So where it crosses the one on the left, that is where Loftus Hall is, which means that creates a vortex. And that vortex is very, very powerful energy. It's a portal in itself. And when I came into Loftus Hall, everybody was talking about it being haunted, but I said, no, there's something else here. There's something else here. And I came into the tapestry room, which I never believed Lady Anne died in. But as soon as I came in, I went on the left to a corner. And it's the actual corner where that line crosses the other line there. So my colleague was quite freaked out when we saw this on maps. He's like, how did you know? And I said, I didn't. I felt it, So that's one of my superpowers. And I lived in that area for 4.5 years. So I got to research the hall for a couple of years and wrote the book. And I did release the spirits. I didn't want them there anymore. It was going to be turned into a hotel. But now it's vacant and free again. And I'm sort of begging people who have the money, because I am penniless, I do not have the money, to buy the hall and let me do something else with it, but we'll see. So anyway, next slide, please.
You must be a good dowser.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't do it dowsing, actually. I feel it with my stomach, I felt the places. I play a game with my son where I get in the car, and I will just go left, right, left, depending on what my stomach sort of feels like a pull, and then I'll plot that on a map, and I've got a ley line afterwards when I compare it with the actual archaeology in the area. So that's how I do it. I do dowsing, but I don't need it most of the time. So now we're going to get into the Templars and the Masons and all that stuff. So that tip of land there that you see, that's me. That's my wrist flying a plane over it. Okay, so the last time I flew was in 2019, sorry. I've been flying since I was 16, 17. I got my license in NATO when my dad was posted over there in Belgium. And all of that land, which extends out in the south of Ireland, is the Hook Peninsula in County Wexford. And that was all Templar, all given to the Knights Templar. And it really kind of annoys me when people say there were no Templars in Ireland. Because the Templars were very, very here. They had a great presence. They have been very underrepresented, and they built things to last. That lighthouse, I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit, Miguel. Can you zoom in at all, or maybe not?
No, not that I know.
Okay, I'll have to bring. Well, you can see that there's a little kind of black and white lighthouse on the edge of the land. So that is Hook Lighthouse, built by William Marshall, the greatest knight that ever lived. So still stands. It's the world's oldest and working lighthouse.
Wow.
So I'm proud to say it's Templar. So all of that was Templar, and across from Waterford as well. If we go to the next slide, please. That is a Templar church. Now what we're seeing there is the remains of the Hospitaller construction afterwards, but that was a Templar church of St. Mary's, and I took that photo. I know it looks really eerie, but
like an album cover for U2 or something. I don't know.
I know. Well, hey, I used to sing. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back to that. So I go there in my book. So if anybody wants to, my book is for sale. The collector's edition is no longer for sale. I mean, I have a couple at 666 euros if anybody wants them from my own stash. But I have a paperback, which is more affordable. So that's in my store on my website. And you can get it dedicated by me. But in that book, I tell that there's a ghost that helped me all this time who was a Templar descendant. He's called Seth. Okay. And his voice was heard in the hall many times. And we used to both go there and sit there in the book, because the book is about me researching the story of Loftus Hall, the real story, not the devil in the cards nonsense, you know. And I discovered there was no exorcism, by the way. It was all a tale, you know, but I discovered that the actual story was much more haunting, and it deserved to be out for these spirits to rest, which is what I've been trying to do. And there is a grave of a Templar there with an Agnus Dei, which is a Lamb of God. And I used to sit there with Seth on that grave. And it's like anytime I have to make a big decision in my life, I go there and I sit there. And I feel that I have strength from them. And it's really nice to feel that, you know. So that's a very special place for me. It's the Templar Church of St. Mary's in Templeton, okay, or Templetown, which was the seat of the Knights Templar in Wexford, okay. And if we go to the next photo. So the locals asked me where the first Redmond was buried, okay, who would have come in when the Anglo-Norman invasion in 1168, 1169, depending on the dates that you read, okay. And he would have come in with Strongbow. And just very quickly what happened, just to situate the context, Ireland was yet another casualty of the Catholic Church, because like the Cathars, who endured the Albigensian Crusade under the Pope decided that the Irish were too pagans and that the Celtic Church was too pagan and they had to be Christianized properly and brought into the Catholic Mother Church. So he launched a crusade against Ireland with a papal bill. It's called Laudabiliter, okay? And basically what happened was, at the time, Henry II was blamed for the murder of the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket. And apparently it was 3 knights that did it, but he assumed the blame, and he was made by the Pope to go on a crusade and also pay for the maintenance of 200 knights in the Holy Land. So he decided, being a smart man, and also being a supporter of the Templars, that he would pay his dues to the Pope, but he would do it at no cost to himself. How was he going to do that? Well, he decided that he was going to send 200 Templars to Ireland to claim land for themselves. It wouldn't cost him a dime, you know. They could get rich over there, and he was squared with the Pope. And that was his penance. And then he came, once they had conquered a few lands for themselves, then he came over to Waterford. So yeah, he was going on a crusade, but he was going to Ireland from England, not to the Holy Land. So that's what happened. And Raymond Le Gros was an Anglo-Norman knight who would have been a Templar. The Templars never came in as an organized force, but they came in with those Anglo-Normans because some of them who led the Anglo-Norman invasion were Templars, even if they didn't do it as an organized force. So Raymond Le Gros was one of them. Hugh de Lacy was another one. And the locals asked me, well, okay, we know Redmond Hall is here and the rest of the family is here, but where is the first Redmond? If you find him, please tell us. So I did. That's his grave. Near County Cork, at the edge of County Waterford, in lands that he gave to the Knights Templar for the building of a Templar preceptory. So he's buried on Templar lands in Molana Abbey. And Molana Abbey is next to Temple Michael, which is where the Knights Templar would have had their preceptory, and there are Templar family vaults there of many families as well. There's a Fitzgerald Castle that's connected to Raymond Le Gros as well, the Redmonds, okay. And then there is a promontory called Rincrew, which is the next image, please.
Here you go.
Oh, that one shouldn't be there. Skip that one. Next, sorry. That was just me. There we go. So this has been the subject of much debate in the Irish world of academia. And I'm going to say that I don't agree with the latest opinion that it is not Templar. And I'm going to say this because, first of all, we have evidence that this land was given to the Knights Templar by Raymond Le Gros, so the first Redmond that I mentioned. It is next to Temple Michael as well, and where he's lying, where his remains are lying. But we have as I mentioned before, I'm published by the UNESCO, so I like to promote UNESCO sites. So in Cyprus, where the Knights Templar were, we have a UNESCO World Heritage Site called Koidokoitia. And Koidokoitia has exactly the same building as what you're seeing here, minus the Irish green moss. Exact construction, and it's recognized as a Templar preceptory. So what I would like to say is, humbly, respectfully, I think sometimes when we do history, we need to look outside of the country.
Agreed.
So for me, this is a Templar preceptory, yes. So, and there were lands that were given to the Templars. So I will be working with all of this history, and my plan is to do a map on all of this. So and map the preceptories, because we're told that the Templars had 8, 9, 11, or even 15 preceptories, but actually I found over 20. And I haven't even gotten started yet properly. So
amazing.
Their presence has been very underrepresented. If we can go, please, to the next slide when you can. Now we're looking, I think, at my dissertation. Okay. Hold on. Is that the next slide, or there's one before? I don't know.
I didn't think I jumped around. No, we got 33,
no, okay,
the Freemason number, and now 34.
Yeah, okay. So remember I was talking about Kilcooley Abbey, the Cistercian Abbey?
Right.
And my teacher from the College of Psychic Studies, Anne Theater, where there she is. That's my car. My office gets me from one place to the other, and that's the Cistercian Abbey of Kilcooley. If I didn't have that car, I'd probably break my legs again. I did, as a funny note, when I met Anne that day, she was recovering from a broken leg, okay? And 3 weeks later, I had a double fracture of my right leg.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, so we always joke that people shouldn't meet with us unless they want to break their legs.
And not in the entertainment good way.
No. I was down. I needed surgery, but in the end, I got around the surgery by having bone broth, which is a Templar remedy, every day. So I didn't need the surgery, and I did my own physio, and I'm fine now. But I was down for 3.5 months in a wheelchair, believe it or not, which is very. My son was laughing at me. He's like, "Yeah, from paddleboarding to wheelchair, Mom. Great going." So this is where Excalibur was filmed, and that window that we saw in the beginning, which we will see again, it's Ireland's most ornate Gothic window. So there's parts of this abbey which are medieval, dating from the 12th century, and then there's parts that are a bit later, and then the kind of more ornate parts, like the window of 15th century with the mason marks. So let's look at it a little bit more. The next slide, please. So that's the window that you see there. Okay, and there is, you can't really see it there, but in the left side, there's a tomb there with an 8-pointed cross star on it. That is a Templar slab there, okay? And in front of the window is what is believed to be Ireland's oldest altar.
Oh.
In that window, if you step back and you start looking at the patterns, you see 5-petaled flowers. But you also see, if you look at all of the kind of the tracer, the flame tracery on it, which is called, and then you look in the middle, it's actually the tree of life. Can you see it, guys? There's a tree.
The Sephiroth?
Yeah, there's a tree. There's a tree. It's just a tree. Okay. So the ornate part is like the tree, and then right in the middle there's the trunk that you go down. And if you focus on that, you can see a tree. Okay.
Yeah, stylized.
Yes. Okay. So this is Ireland's. This survived this window, all the destruction of the churches and the monasteries, which was amazing. Okay. And it's a very beautiful church. I'm thinking of doing a Templar tour soon after my dissertation, if I'm alive. So if people are interested, I will take them to real places, and I will take them behind the scenes because I can. So anyway, and I will give them some of my research as well on some of these places. I'm trying to connect also all the Templar sites in Ireland with the Europeans right now. I just emailed the French, but the French are being, as the French are, taking their time. So, you know, we'll see how long. Everybody's on holiday in Europe right now.
Yeah.
You know? So,
July and August.
they yeah, close for lunch. But anyway, next slide, please, whenever you can. So that's the inside. The mermaid is actually on that arched doorway there. So she's just on the right in the wall there. And she's always hidden by darkness, which is really interesting because, like the Black Madonnas, we tend to find them in the dark grottos or dark places of churches. And the mermaid is never in the sun completely, you know. And if you look at the ceiling, we've got 8-pointed stars there as well in the ribs. So there's a lot of symbolism there. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, now this is just getting to my dissertation now. So we're getting to the hopefully more interesting stuff for some of you. Are there any questions so far? Because I know I've been going quite quickly. I didn't want to take 3 hours today.
No, I'm fascinated, and people in the chat we've got
Are
a
they
big
happy?
crowd, and they're loving it. They're loving it.
Okay, good. So Templar mania continues here. So I decided, since I learned this year doing my master's at the university, that there isn't any interest in academia in medieval history in Ireland, and certainly not on the Knights Templar, that I was going to continue my crusade with them. I've worked on Knights Templar for 30 years. I know that people don't know me, but I worked behind closed doors until the pandemic. I didn't need to be public for anybody. And I was hired by people that knew how to find me. So, the pandemic sort of changed all that, and I've decided to come out and go public. So I decided to take 2 places in Ireland's southeast. The Templars were in most of Ireland except for the north. So I am based in the southeast at the moment. So I looked at 2 places that for me were really interesting. One of them is a graveyard, which I'm helping the volunteers, or rather I joined and I did a few things with them. And then I'm trying to provide suggestions to turn it into a visitor center. And the other one is not a site, but is the Madonna that you see there. But I'll get into that in a minute. So my title for my dissertation, which I have to finish by August, is From Medieval Crusades to Modern Communities, Interpreting the History of the Knights Templar at Selected Heritage Sites in Ireland's Southeast. Okay. So we can go to the next slide, please. And the photos there are by my friend and colleague, Philip Devereux, who I hope may be watching. So Philip, thank you for your photos and for your patience. He's also photographed my 2 Black Madonnas. And I'm really, really grateful to him. Yeah, because I wanted them to reflect a lot of things, that women should have in their personalities, but also in their soul, deep buried in their soul, not just be portraits of virgins, in a church. So he was able to bring that out. So this was my question for my dissertation. From medieval crusades to modern communities, interpreting the history of the Knights Templar selected heritage sites in Ireland Southeast. Sorry, that's the title. My question is, how can public history practices be employed to interpret, preserve, which is what really interests me, like the Gnostics. And I will say that I was baptized a Catholic, but I feel more Gnostic than anything if I have to stick a label. So interpret, preserve, and engage communities with the Knights Templar heritage in Ireland Southeast. So I'm looking at techniques, things that I can do to get the locals to become aware of the history they've overlooked. Because most people don't even know or don't even remember, even though that we're surrounded by Templar sites, that the Templars were in Ireland, because nobody's really writing about it. And they don't know that the ruins they visit every day are Templar, or that those Cistercian monasteries are actually connected to the Templar orders, and they had a Templar preceptory nearby or in them. So for me, it's part of cultural heritage, but it's also part of the country's identity. Because many of these Templars, they married into in Ireland. What happened with their arrest on Friday the 13th? Today's the 13th, but in 13th of October, nothing happened to them in that date. Like in England, it happened a little bit later, but they were rounded up, taken to Dublin Castle, And they weren't tortured. They were interrogated in St. Patrick's Cathedral that we saw, okay? But then they were all allowed to go back to their lives or the places they had lived, or to live a peaceful life for the rest of their time, relatively at peace and without any interference or anything, you know. So many of them went back to doing whatever they were doing, you know. And Kilbar Templar Cemetery, which is one of the places that I'm working on, was actually one of the bigger Templar preceptories because it recruited people, young Templars. But it's also where many of the Templars that later were rounded up chose to actually spend their days. So for me, one of the things that I wanted to do, and we'll see it in the photos afterwards, because I felt it, and I've grown attached to the Knights Templar for various reasons. I won't go into now, but there are many dead Knights Templar in that graveyard, as well as later burials. And it's a very, very old site. I'll comment it in a moment with the archaeological findings. I wanted to give the Templars a little bit of comfort and of what they would have known when they were alive. So one of the things that I did when I found out that a group of volunteers was restoring the gardens, which were really overgrown and filled with rubbish, and they've done an amazing job, is I wanted to give them a list of plants that I curated from looking and studying, because I teach about Templar medicine as well. But the Templars would have grown in their psychic gardens because they would have had a psychic garden there. And they also had an orchard, and they had a manor, and they had a farm, and they had Templar houses there as well. It was a very, very, very big Templar settlement there. So I wanted to give them a little bit of what they would have had. And so that we could also see what a Templar garden looked like and recreate it. So the volunteers accepted the plants that I suggested, and they have been planting some of them. They even accepted my suggestion for a bee hotel because the Templars would have kept bees. So I was very happy to see that. And then they even added a bat house and all these wonderful things. But anyway, so if we go to the next slide, please.
We got Madonnas.
Okay. Yes. So I'll talk about this first, and then I'll end with the Templar preceptory. And we've got about 10, 15 minutes left. Is that okay, guys, for time?
Sure, take your time. Yeah. No worries.
Over. So this is one half of my dissertation, okay? And why is it so random to go from a Templar preceptory to a Madonna? Well, this lady here, I had a video for you in the slide, but I don't know if it's going to play. It's my own video. It's embedded in it there. But if not,
for next
I'll send
time,
it to you.
Yeah, please.
So this lady is Ireland's second Black Madonna, okay? We are told that we only have one Black Madonna in Ireland from a Cistercian monastery in Dublin, and she's Flemish, of Flemish origin. This lady is from Spain, my maternal country, where I was born and where my mother's lineage comes from as well, okay? My mother's family, I won't get into it, but it's a very, very old family in Castile in the north of Spain, and they were involved in the Crusades and other things, but I will leave that for another day. So what I discovered was that she had been hidden away and nobody knew about her. And I wanted to get her story out because, again, I am about secret history, giving a voice to the voiceless, bringing back what has been forgotten or omitted. So she had been forgotten. The last time she was seen is on the left. You see her number one there, the Virgin number one. She was polychromated, okay? And she was seen in 1947, photographed by Dr. Catriona MacLeod, who specializes in medieval religious statues. And then she was never seen again until recently. And I've been engaging with the locals. I did speak to some nuns of a convent that would have had the Virgin prior to her being in the church where she is now. And they mentioned that she was taken out in a procession in 1947 due to a flood, a local flood in the area. The area has quite a lot of floods. Now, this Madonna is quite important because she is modeled on a Spanish Virgin. So she's from Spain, but she's modeled on an actual Black Madonna that was originally a black Madonna in Spain that was known for miracles, the Virgin of Charity. Charity, caritas, in medieval times has everything to do with the Knights Templar. But it's not giving to the poor. It's the love that we have for one another, as Christ preached, and later on Mary Magdalene as well. So, and charity is very important in Masonic circles as well, okay? And caritas, not the charity that we understand today, even though they're very involved in giving. So I traced her whole story, and I have a book that's coming out on the side of my dissertation just on her, because I wanted to give her voice back. And she was donated by Waterford merchants family, Patrick Lincoln and Mary Dobbin. Patrick Lincoln was a wine merchant. Now, I mentioned before that wine is connected to the Templars, and I've got a series of lectures that I did, and I resurrected the wine and so on. Well, if you follow the wine trade, you tend to end up with the Templars always. So it's a really interesting thing to look at. And again, wine and the Templars has been very, very overlooked. So this family, Mary Dobbin, donated her to the church when her husband died. Her husband dies in 1666, I believe. And she donated to the church in 1700. And I managed to photograph the grave the other day. It's never been photographed before. I took the parish priest on a wild hunt with me, getting into a garden and doing things that, well, we shouldn't be doing. No, we should. He had the key, so it was legal. And we found the tomb and we photographed it. So that will be in the book as well. And it was really nice because Mary Dobbin, her name was not Dobbin, Dobbyn, but actually D''Auban, from Auban in France. Dauban. So that changes everything. But she was also the daughter of William Dobbin of Ballynakill House in Waterford. He's connected to the Jacobites, and there are connections to the Templars because that area there was Templar. And the Templars had a castle and I believe a church in the island across from him. So anyway, so the daughter donates this virgin, and later on the family had a daughter, okay, who married into the Murphy family. And it's the Murphy family that I looked at to find the origins of this virgin, because I couldn't find anything in Ireland. So I had to know Spanish. I had to go to Spain. I had to go through the files and the family genealogy there, okay. And I managed to find the family called Murphy Porro. And the Murphy Porro family emigrated to Malaga, where there's a virgin tradition. Okay, it's actually called Malaga Virgen, the wine that they have there. So they've named a wine after the Virgin. So again, follow the trail of the wine and you will find Templars. So they established a shipping company in Malaga, and they married into the nobility, and then they established a shipping company in Mexico. But what's interesting is, and I believe they were in Cuba as well. In Cuba, we have, shortly after they established all these shipping companies, we have a Virgin of Charity in Cuba too. La Virgen de la Caridad del Cobre, the Virgin of Charity in copper. I feel, and some scholars feel, was influenced by this particular type of virgin, the Virgin of Charity. And the last thing I'll say about this Madonna, which is really interesting, is not just the whole story that I traced and how she was brought to Ireland during a time when you could face death for doing that, because it was the Reformation and the penal times, and we don't have any native statues that have survived. We only have a handful of religious statues. Most of them are Spanish, actually, like this one, because they were all destroyed because people would be either imprisoned or executed for having a Madonna or bringing one. So she would have been smuggled in a wine ship into Ireland. And the Madonna of Charity represents hope for the people. But again, it also shows us how the Templars revered the feminine as Gnostics as well, Sophia for them, you know, and how they protected her because she wasn't destroyed. She was brought in by a Templar descendant family, kept safe, and she has survived. One of the few that has survived. And that's a wonderful thing to celebrate. And she was modeled, like I said, on a Black Madonna in Spain. She's associated with many miracles in the Catholic Church. There's a page that you can follow, the Miracles of Virgins Worldwide, and the Virgin of Charity, which is originally Spanish, has a lot attributed to her medieval times. But the interesting thing that I'll mention here with Black Madonnas, and I'll leave it there, is if we look at the first ever painting that we have of Mother Mary, attributed to St. Luke, that was found by St. Helena in Jerusalem, and she brought it back to Constantinople, and then somehow it ended up in Poland, in Jasna Gora, the Mount of Light monastery. Again, the light being connected to these statues and Isis and Sophia and the Brotherhoods of Light, Templars, Cathars, Freemasons. She was Black. That first painting was Black. She's the Lady of Czestochowa in Poland, okay? And this Madonna was also originally modeled on a painting. So there was a previous Madonna to this one that was found on a riverbed carved in oak in 1494 near Toledo in Spain. But she had been modeled on a painting that was brought to Toledo by a bishop in 636, which was also of Mother Mary and was also Black, a Black Madonna. So there is a tradition. If we go to the next slide. Just before I get into this, there's a tradition, and I have it in my lectures, of maps, and you can follow the Templar preceptories, the places where you have found Black Madonnas, and you can see that they actually match, which is really interesting. So, you know, so that's a little bit of my dissertation for you guys. This is also my dissertation. We're getting towards the end of today. Now, I'm not going to get you to read documents, but what this is the Knights Templar Rule. Like Dr. Helen Nicholson and Alan J. Forey, particularly Helen Nicholson, who in her PhD went back to primary sources and discovered that women, we did have records of women in the orders and in the Templar order, but they had been omitted, possibly by, you know, bias or who knows. But one of the things that I found during my master's was that until 50 years ago, we had no women historians either. Which makes it really interesting. Yeah. And if you go to Wikipedia, 66% of contributors are male, and only 10% of subjects are female related. The women get left out all the time. And this is something that I want to work on, bring them back, because it is what the Knights Templar were doing. That cross that the Templars wear on their left breast is not a cross that has to do with the Catholic Church or Christianity. The cross dates back to over 40,000 years ago. We can look at the work of Canadian paleoanthropologist Genevieve von Petzinger. She's got a book, First Signs, which is really, really good. And she shows how the cross can be found in caves. And the cross, like the Egyptian ankh, was the union of the masculine and feminine. Okay, the ankh was the breath of life, the womb, the looped part, and the straight part being the phallus of the man, and that created life when united. It's like the anointing ceremony is the orb and the scepter. It's the same thing, or the ring and rod in Mesopotamia. So the cross was the union of the masculine and feminine, but the balance between them. And it was worn on the left side, which is the left-hand feminine path. And this is why there is such a reverence for the feminine in the Templar order and in the Cistercians. This has been left out.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, this has been left out of the modern Templar rules, which I don't understand, you know. So in the screen there, we have in the middle, the English translation by Upton Ward, which has left it all out. The Gnostic concept of the feminine side of God, Sophia, or medieval terms Dame Dieu, has been completely obliterated by her. And I don't understand why, and I'll show you in a minute. And then we have on the left a translation. For me, it's the most accurate translation of the Knights Templar Rule by a Frenchman called Henry de Courson in 1886. It's both in Latin and French. So if you know Latin, you can actually verify, and if you understand medieval French, that this is a real accurate translation that this man did. And then on the left, sorry, on the right, we have the yellow one there in English, the Temple Rule of 1129 AD by Prince Matthew of Thebes, Now, for me, that is exactly the same as the French one from 1886, so very accurate. It has not left out anything. But my only complaint is that it's only the first 72 articles. I wish he had done them all, because the rule got to be 686 articles. So the only way that you can accurately rely on, and I haven't gone through the rest of Upton Ward's text. I will at some point, but I haven't had time to go through the 686. But I did go through the most important articles using, if we go to the next slide, please, a medieval rule, which, there you go. So all of you can find this online in the Walters collection. It's free to access and you can find it. Now you have to get used to reading medieval French and understanding it. But this text I showed in a workshop with my students how it matches, and I taught them how to read it. And we can see there, okay, now if you look at where I have that arrow there, so, bien ouvre Dame Dieu avec nous et notre Sauveur Jésus-Christ. Okay, Dame Dieu is in bold there. That is the feminine side of God. Translated in English, sometimes there's Our Lady of God, but it's really the feminine side of God. Yes? That's not in the Upton Ward. That whole chunk has been taken out. If we go to the next slide, yeah. I don't know why. And anytime that actually Dame Dieu is mentioned, it's taken out. So that's interesting. So you can see it there. That's the 1886 French of Henri de Cruzon, and he has included it there. Okay. And that's the English there. So you can see there. So the good works of Our Lady of God, in French, Dame Dieu. Now, this is not Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene, because when the French in medieval refer to Mother Mary is Notre Dame, and Mary Magdalene is Saint Marie. When they talk about Dame Dieu, we're talking about the same Gnostic concept as Sophia. Same thing. So this has been taken out. And this is a very good piece of evidence to show us another of the many evidences that we have that the Knights Templar were not just revealing the feminine, but had Gnostic foundations. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, this is my cemetery now, okay? I wanted to say something else before I go into the cemetery, if I may. Just to point out on the Templars' own religion, if that's okay. So I have been chasing a document that is in Latin that's called Omne Datum Optimum. It's a papal bull of 1139. It was public before, but since I've been talking about it, like other documents that I've been talking about it, it has been removed from the public sphere. And you can only find it in Malcolm Barber's book, but already translated. I didn't want the English translation. I wanted to go back to the primary source and find the Latin to read it myself and see if it actually said what it should say, okay? And not, because I'm a translator and I realize that even though, when people do translations, they do it with their best intentions, we can be biased sometimes, we can forget things, we can leave things out. So I always go to primary sources. So in this bull, what happens is that it talks about the Templars having their own religion. And it actually shows how the Catholic Church was aware of this, okay? So just to give you a little bit of background of what I would say the Templars' religion is, okay? The Templar Rule of 1129 operates to canon law, which is rule number 9 in the Templars book, as a canonical institution, okay? Rule 274. However, the same rule of St. Bernard, which makes the order Christian, also specifically highlights its unique path of spirituality with its own Templar priesthood. The order is repeatedly described as its own holy communion of this religion. Okay, that's rule number 2 that I just showed you. The religion of knighthood, rule number 14, and a religion by armed knighthood, rule 57. The Knights Templar are founded in the biblical Temple of Solomon, okay, which is a pharaonic Egyptian temple, embodying the most ancient Magi priesthood of Melchizedek, okay, Genesis 14, 18, 20. of the biblical magi, 2 Samuel 15, 25, 27, and I can give more references, okay? But before I get into more boring things for a lot of you, this legendary Templar priesthood, which was accepted as such by the early church fathers, okay, like Saint Jerome, consists of the earliest origins of classical Christianity before the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church starts in AD 301. Okay, that's the date that we have for its foundation. But we have all of these texts and what we can call Christianity. And I won't get into what Christ is today, but Christ is a title, not a name. Okay, so the Templars are considered to be the guardians of the origins of Christianity, rules 1, 2, and 8 of the Templars Rule, okay, which are the foundational pillars essential to restore and preserve the church. But that's not the Catholic Church that we're talking about. We're talking about the church before the Catholic Church, which is essentially an esoteric form of Gnosticism. Okay, so for the same reason, because the ancient priesthood of the Templars predates and is the foundation of all religions, the Temple Rule also established that the order is interfaith, okay, and non-denominational for individual membership. Rules 65, 66, 279, and 630 were still upholding the traditions of ancient Christianity as an institution. Now, the order defends the church, but it's not a church. It's an order of chivalry and always included secular knights. We know this. You know, many of the knights that joined were not monks. You know, they had nothing to do with being monks. William Marshall being one of them, for example. Okay. So therefore, authentic Templarism doesn't impose any particular beliefs on the members and doesn't require any specific religious practices. Okay. They had Jews in the order, okay, and the serving brethren. In the citizen class, let's not forget that first the Templars were open to noble lineage, but then they were open to citizen class. So members of the citizen class could be Jewish, could be Muslim, like the Turcopoles they employed, and could be Catholic. According to one of the greatest, for me, teachers of Gnosticism, Gilles Quispel, he wrote about this, and so did Timothy Wallace Murphy, who wrote a lot about the Templars and the Rex Deus, and whose work I really, really treasure. He spoke of 10 circles within the Templar order, 7 outer circles dedicated to the minor mysteries, which were made up of all these faiths, and the inner 3 circles, which were running the order, made up of the best Gnostic families. I believe in this. And you can see it in the texts that the Templars have left us, okay? So historically, Templar spirituality is a more conservative form of esoteric Gnosticism, okay? And it concentrates on direct personal divine communion through the Holy Spirit, direct experience of God. They didn't need any priest, they didn't need any church, they didn't need anything to be with God, which is what Christ really spoke about. Their Templar spirituality is characterized by the reverence of the divine feminine, the Dame Dieu, which was omitted in the modern Templar rule, individual daily prayer, frequent spiritual meditation, vocal chanting, esoteric energy work, and spiritual alchemy involving the chakras, so energy work, and metaphysical science. Okay, the Templars had to study the 7 noble sacred sciences, and this isn't a Templar rule as well. Okay, but just to finish off with what I was saying with the papal bull before, this papal bull actually refers to the Templars having their own religion, Vestra Religio, with its own religious life, okay? And it recognizes it as the source and origins, okay? The Temple of Solomon as a source and origins of your holy institution. So St. Augustine and St. Jerome in 418 AD, they recognized the ancient Solomonic priesthood as the origins of Christianity and declared this as a true religion which already existed and which began to be called Christian. So that's what I wanted to say on the Gnostic side of things. And going back now to my slides to finish off, I just have a few photos to show you all.
Okay.
So this is the Templar Cemetery of Kilbar. This is within an industrial complex in the city, okay? So it shouldn't even exist, which makes it so special, but it does. And it has survived destruction. It has survived, you know, this was founded in 1180. So that's how old it is. And it's actually an ancient site. I've gone through the archaeological reports with Bronze Age burial, cremation pits and assist. And they found an axe, they found human remains from the Bronze Age period, flint. So it's a very, very ancient site. And it documents the fact that the Templars chose pagan ancient sites to build their preceptories on. If we go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So you can see there, the industrial complex there is a warehouse right outside the graveyard. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
And we still have the vaults of that church, okay, which was later amended or built on by the Hospitallers. The Hospitallers took over this preceptory, although the Templars were allowed to go back here and live the rest of their lives. But later on, the Hospitallers took over, and it was last used as a church in the 1600s. So if we look at the next slide, please. It's also a famine graveyard as well. Yeah, so that's a little bit more of the church, what's left. Now, the Templar preceptory is underground outside of the graveyard, and it hasn't been dug yet. I say yet because I would like to get involved in that. So, yes. So I have a friend, Krista Carlson, if you're listening, archaeologist of the Military Crusades, who's working in England and all the Templar sites, who's dying to come over. And I have to get back to him because I've been so busy this week that I just haven't replied to anybody, you know. But anyway, but hopefully we will look at that. So next slide, please. Some of the this is a wonderful photo of Maggie, one of the volunteers of the site who was there from the very beginning with Paddy. So this happened as a school project of a 14-year-old girl who didn't want this graveyard to fall into disrepair and be just done away with. And her grandfather, who had grown up there, who played cowboys and Indians, as he told me, an 80-year-old man who I interviewed last week, they didn't want this to go. They had their memories there. It wasn't just a Templar graveyard. It was a place for the community. So that's why I made it part of my public history project. What you see there is one of the plants that I gave the volunteers as a list of plants the Templars would have had, St. John's wort. So plant there. Yeah, it was really nice to see it in bloom when I came back. If we go to the next slide, please. Maggie's done a wonderful job with all of this. So these are bits of the door or of the church that are just lying around like Lego pieces, which I would like to do something with. But, you know, at the moment I don't have any funds. So if anybody wants to support my work, you know, please let me know. And we can get working like Lego, building things, okay? So next slide, please. And all of these, I have to say, were found by the volunteers of the group. I did not find these, but I did identify and classify them, okay? So they showed them to me, and they didn't know what they were, and I shared with them what I thought they were. And there's a few surprises here. This is a Bullaun stone, possibly also a spud stone, okay? So Bullauns were also known as cursing stones, and they're quite early. We can talk about them from the Iron Age until the early medieval period, and they would have been used for healing, collecting rainwater, but also for cursing. And the Bishop of Ferns put a curse on William Marshall, the Templar, that he would have no male surviving heirs, and he didn't, you know, and he cursed, he cursed his town for 200 years, if that wasn't enough, just because he took a castle and a bit of land from him. So cursing by the Catholic Church was accepted then. I'm not sure why, you know, but anyway. So I've notified these to the Monument Service. So cursing / spudstone. Let me see the next one. I think I didn't put all the things. Okay. So I skipped over a few things on purpose because I want to create a little bit of suspense for you guys, but I will tell you I've got Norse archaeology, Viking archaeology. Yeah. This site was on the land of the Ostmen, and Waterford was founded by Vikings. And there is a Viking connection with the Templars, but I will leave that for my dissertation. So I found a couple of Viking things there, and I have shown them to the site archaeologist. He also agreed with me on one of them that he thought, I said, if you had to go to the top of your head, what would you say this is? And he said Norse. So,
Mhm.
you know, and that's the first, because we haven't found that particular thing anywhere in Europe. So it's a really interesting find. The only place that there's something similar to it is in Iceland, dating back to 919. So that's going to be an interesting one, but I'll share that with you the next episode I come. Now, this is to finish off today. So I don't know if you can zoom in at all that, but it's actually a block of stone that I didn't know. The archaeologist, when I showed it to him, he didn't know what this was, but I explained it was a Masonic graffiti item with various things in it. So we have the crossbones that you see there. We have a blazing star underneath the crossbones. It's a 5-pointed blazing star. We have "blessed is the word" written out, which I was able to decipher because it's kind of blurry when you go there, but you can make out the words. And then we have a cross and a little skull next to the crossbones on the right. Okay.
Mhm.
And then we have something else, which I haven't worked out yet. It looks like leaves. I've got all the symbols except for that one, but I know where this comes from. And I would like to say that I will reveal all and decode it for you live with Miguel on the next show. But I'll tell you one thing before we go.
Mm.
The wall is from 1850. It's a famine wall. The block, the archaeologist of the site, Dave Pollock, I met up with him and I went through his reports, and he's pointed out something to me that I hadn't noticed because I don't work archaeology as he does, that this block had been inserted at a 90-degree angle on the wall. So it had been specially crafted to be decorated with what is on it
Mm.
and inserted afterwards. Masonic graffiti, relevant, and I will tell you now, I won't give you any more clues, relevant to the Templars that escaped France and went to Scotland and Ireland on a Templar cemetery wall.
Wow.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
So because it ties in, we began talking about the Templars' arrival in Ireland today. County Waterford was one of the counties that had the most Masonic lodges in Ireland. And this is a really nice find because it isn't a Templar cemetery, which was a preceptory, but it's Masonic graffiti. And it
Right.
connects the Templars and the Freemasons. So those of you who don't believe in connections between the two, I think I've mentioned quite a lot of connections today between both of them, even with the families and the floor in Loftus Hall and now this. So in Ireland, for me, along with Scotland, are the places where Freemasonry began much earlier than in England.
Mm.
I visited the Grandmother Lodge Kilwinning, which dates back to 1160 in Scotland, Lodge 0. And I also visited St. Mary's Chapel, Lodge number 1 in Edinburgh, which dates back, and it actually has in the vault minutes of meeting dating back to 1599. So people who believe that Freemasonry emerges in the 1700s, you're wrong. Look at Ireland and Scotland.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much for listening, everybody. And that was the video of the graveyard. Yeah, it's a shame.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a shame.
yeah.
Well,
So
next time, yeah, this has been fantastic. I love it. Again, you and I have talked, so I've had the pleasure of chatting with you on all this, but you bring
thank
even
you.
more on this one. And the best part about you, Helena, you're only getting warmed up. This is just the
Oh
beginning
yeah.
of your journey, I feel. But what do you think, Vance? Or do you have any questions? How are
Oh,
you?
it's overwhelming the amount of knowledge that Helena has brought to us, and very, very fascinating. I'm pretty much convinced. I had no idea that Knights Templar, ranged over such a large area and got as far as Ireland, but it's
Mm,
entirely true.
mm, mm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice messages. Yeah, that's the reason why I was doing this, because I became an Irish citizen 2 weeks ago. So it's I'm adding that to my list of passports. But I I fallen in love with this country. It has done a lot for me, and I went to live in an area by chance that was Templar, And, you know, I've seen the legacy of the Templars. I see as Gnostics what they have done. And as I said to Father Nathan of the Gnostic Union, if it wasn't for the Gnostics and if it wasn't for the Templars, we wouldn't have a lot of the knowledge that has been preserved today. We just wouldn't have it.
Right.
They would have done away with the Cathars, with all of these people, and it wouldn't have survived. So I think, you know, and we owe them a lot when it comes to Western medicine as well. A lot of the techniques we use, you know, and Ireland lives of tourism. For me, it has a great wealth. It has over 133 Cistercian monasteries and, well, possibly over 20 preceptories, plus Templar houses, plus other things that keep churning up every day that are not on an official list. And I'm like, ooh, they were breeding horses here and exporting them to the Holy Sepulchre. And why didn't I know about this place? Because it wasn't in any book. It's in all the manuscripts. You have to go to the Cistercian manuscripts and read what they were writing, you know, so I've been finding things. So it's, if you like puzzles, Ireland is definitely the place to play that. But it's a land of poets, of scholars, of druids, of knowledge, and of ancient energies, and the Templars worked with ancient energies. So it's very, very relevant. And I'll tell you why I think they were here. We can end today on that if you want.
Sure.
For me, if you think about it, Ireland was once on the edge of what was known and what was unknown. The medieval world didn't really know the new world, even though some people are saying they did, and the Vikings were there and so on, okay? But it was a center place, a threshold. And it's considered the hub of the paranormal because it was a center place as well. The energies are so strong, and you feel them. You know, if you work with energy, you really feel them, you know? But it was also a place where they could regroup, gain strength, rethink, and do things and plan. And nobody would suspect that they were in Ireland. Like, nobody thinks now that there were Templars in Ireland. They just didn't, you know. But it also gave the order the money. It was the number 2 and number 3 place in the world that gave them most of the money because of the wool trade, the mills, the crops that they were growing, and the horses that they were breeding here and exporting. So Ireland made them a lot of money, and that's why it was important to them. And there's a YouTube talk. I'll come back maybe to your program, but I did a YouTube talk on the unholy trinity between Scotland, Flanders, and Ireland, which has been overlooked. And that's really interesting because if you look at all the kings that we associate with the Templars, Robert the Bruce, the Stuart dynasty, all of these, they are French, you know, but they have French connections, and people say they're Scottish. Well, before Scottish and anything else, they're actually Flemish, guys. Flanders. Flanders. The Flemings went everywhere after the conquest of Hastings, the Battle of Hastings. They were invited formally into England, and they came to Ireland as well. So follow the Fleming trail and you will find the Templars.
Good deal. Good deal. This is excellent. Yeah. Well, we probably should wrap it up again. The audience really liked it. I guess I'll mention the couple of super chats. Thanks, Chester. And thank you very much, Cyberview. Not surprising, if you add up their super chats, it comes up to 33 because that's just the theme of this show. But yeah, so yeah, for everybody, we look forward to having Helena again for the second part. We got a lot more to talk about, and we got so much more to do. So first, I'll say, Vance, thanks for
you,
keeping
and
us company.
hopefully
I was going to say
next
bye
time,
to Vance
hopefully
first.
the video.
The video, yes. Next time, well, what we'll do is simply direct. We'll just do it directly. We won't have to stream it. I can upload it to StreamYard and I can show it easily. So
normally there isn't
we'll
any
get there.
problem,
We overcame.
you know?
We overcame a lot today, Elena. So
Yes,
we did well. We did well.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for having me. For everybody. Yes. Have
Take care,
a good
Miguel.
rest of
Thank
your
you.
week. And yeah, we will talk soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
And yeah, write your own gospel. Live your own live your own myth, like the Templars. Bye.